We've got a great group of people with us today on the AAA Radio Experience, but I want to start by introducing you to Deb Birdsall, who is the author of the book, Overcoming My Mother's Addictions. Deb, welcome to the AAA Radio Experience.
Thank you. Thanks for having us today.
I think you may be the nexus or the reason that the other people around the table are around the table. Would you introduce to us the other two special people that are here in the studio with us today?
I have two other very special people with us here today. I have Karen Pershing, who is the Executive Director of the Metro Drug Coalition. Am I saying that right, Karen?
You are.
All right, yes. So happy to have you here with us. And my very special and sweet 11-year-old granddaughter, Lili, is here with us today as well.
Lili's the star of the show. Let's give it up for Lili.
Yeah.
So let's start here. Why did you write this book? I would love to know the origin story. It's one thing for you to go through something. It's another to go through something and say, this didn't just happen to us, it happened for us, to be leveraged to help other people. What brought you to writing this book?
Well, it was interesting because I knew I was going to write a book. And to be honest with you, Hallerin, I thought that I would be writing a book from the perspective of my husband and myself in dealing with the juvenile system in trying to protect my granddaughters because of their mother's choice, my daughter's choice to use drugs. And I woke up one January morning, this last January, with the realization and understanding that no, this book was not going to be written from my perspective. It was going to be written from the perspective and the voice of my 11-year-old granddaughter, Lili. And I immediately got out of bed at 3:33 in the morning and started typing, and that's how this book came to be. It's something that is near and dear to my heart, protecting the children, and unfortunately, so many of our children are faced with similar circumstances right now in their lives, and it just breaks my heart to know that they're out there suffering, needlessly suffering because of the choices of the adults in their life.
Tell me your daughter's story first.
Well, my daughter, by her own admission, started using drugs when she was 11 years old. I did not realize it until she was 17.
Same age as Lili.
Yeah, same age as Lili, exactly. And she has lived a really, really rough life because of it. And at one point, my husband and I were actually raising all three of my granddaughters, Lili and her two half-sisters. They were 2, 3, and 7 at the time, and my husband is now 75 years old, so that was about 3 years ago, and there's some challenges associated with raising little ones when you're a little bit older like we are. So, it's been an interesting process to walk through, and I think more than anything, what I wanted to share through this book is how important it is for the young people that are dealing with similar circumstances to understand that their parents' choices do not have to define their present and future happiness. They can choose a life that is different from that which they've grown up with, that which they have come to know, as long as they're given the tools, the resources, in order to know how to work that process.
So where's your daughter now?
My daughter, Lili's mom, is currently back in jail. Again, she's in and out all the time. But she did read the book. She read this book, and I was, actually, I'm calling it the first miracle of this book, Hallerin, because she read the book and said, after she read it, that she hopes that it does help a lot of people. And she told Lili, she said, I am so proud of you doing this, because Lili co-authored this with me, collaborated with me on this. She said, it's really important to understand that you don't want to keep these things inside, because if you do, you tend to make poor choices. And she actually apologized to Lili for all of the pain that she has brought into her life. So I'm hoping when she gets out this time, she's talking about going into a transitional home here in Knoxville or in Lebanon, and that's my prayer, is that she will do that. And that's honestly one of the audiences that we're reaching out to. This book has been quite an experience to write and to promote. And so one of our audiences is for addicts out there, people who are suffering with addiction. If they are wanting to move into a place of permanent recovery or are in recovery and debating on whether or not to stay in recovery, and they read this book, my fondest hope is that they will read it and say, you know what, I don't want to do that to my children anymore, and they will choose a permanent recovery. So that's one of the 4 audiences.
The book is entitled Overcoming My Mother's Addictions, and written by Deb Birdsall in collaboration with her 11-year-old granddaughter, Lili, who is here in studio with us. Lili, welcome to the broadcast. How did you come to write it from her perspective? What was that collaboration about? And Lili, how did you feel about taking your experience and putting it into a book to try to help people?
I felt fine. I mean, I was okay with it because basically lots of people already know about my story, and so I was okay with like even more people knowing about it if it helped them.
So, as an 11-year-old whose mother has an addiction, what has your life been like? What has that been like for you, and what story do you tell in the book here?
My life has been very, very hectic, and lots of bad things have happened.
For instance, what are some of the things that you talk about in the book and about your experience?
When I was when I was living with my mom and Sophia and Delilah, my 2 little half sisters, I used to always have to take care of them, like feed them, bathe them, and stuff like that. And so that, and then I would also get 1 macaroni and cheese like a day that I made myself, unless I was like in my stepdad's restaurant.
So you would only have like 1 meal a day. You had to take care of your little sisters. So you're hungry, you got all this stress on you, and you're trying to go to school at the same time?
Yeah, most of the time I would be missing the bus though.
How did that affect you emotionally? How did you survive? What were you thinking?
I was always thinking, like, I wonder what's going to happen next. And, like, if there's going to be, like, another fight that day or something like that. Because I can tell, like, when people are, like, mad or, like, have some emotion on their face, because I can tell that because of my experience.
So you live in this energy that becomes very familiar, and you're always watching out for what's the next bad thing that's going to happen. You know, that has to be heavy and traumatic, because the way you anticipate life is the way you experience life. So if you're waiting for the next bad thing to happen, that puts you on edge. But a beautiful 11-year-old young lady like yourself should be thinking about what's the next good thing that's going to happen. And it's kind of upside down, isn't it? So talk about overcoming your mother's addiction. How did you move out of some of those bad situations into a place of stability, into a place where you could begin to think about sharing your story with people?
Well, it was like really hard, but like I forgave my mom for all the bad things that she has put me through. Because if you don't forgive somebody who has done bad stuff in your life, then you're just gonna keep holding that in and not telling like anybody and not forgiving them.
So you forgave her?
Yes.
How did you come to the place of forgiveness? Is that a God thing? Is that a grandma thing?
It's a God thing.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, I want to find out more about that, and then I'll come back to Deb and the rest of the team here. You're listening to the Triple H Radio Experience. You're listening to the Triple H Radio Experience, NewsTalk 98.7 WOKI. I have with me Lili Birdsall and her ghostwriter, Deb, her grandmother. Thank you for joining me today. You said that you ended up. Your mother has an addiction. Your mother is in jail. A lot of bad things happened. You mentioned the fact that you were hungry. You were taking care of your half sisters. You were on edge every day, waiting for the next bad thing to happen, and you realized, maybe through God, that the only way forward was through the pathway of forgiveness. How did you get there? And maybe talk a little bit about your relationship with God.
I always believed in God ever since I was like little. Always like pretended, like not really pretended because it's real. Like I would have like somebody standing next to me or whatever, and like I named her Rosie. It was my imaginary friend, you could say, and so that like I always like talked to her, and it was kind of helping me believe more in God, and then yeah.
So, in these conversations with Rosie, right, your spiritual friend, at what point did you get to where you're like, my mom has some brokenness that she has to deal with, but I need to forgive her? Do you remember that moment when you agreed within yourself that forgiveness was best? What was that?
Well, it only happened about like a couple months ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about that moment.
When she came to read the book, and I just came in the house, and she like basically said I'm sorry, and then I forgave her then.
What was it like seeing her?
I mean, it was normal. It was fine, but it was like a little scary.
So at the point and the moment of forgiveness, did you guys hug? Did you what was?
Yeah, we hugged.
And then you were like, I got to let this go.
Yeah.
Because I would imagine you would be afraid. I would imagine you would be angry. I would imagine there's a whole flood of emotions. Deb, what were you Were you there as this happened?
Oh, I was there, yes, and it was beautiful. And then I said, hey, I want in on this, and so of course I hugged my daughter as well. I had decided a long time ago that for me, and as an adult, you know, we think things maybe a little bit differently or come to a place of peace. But I come to realize that people have their choices to make, and we have no control over their choices. And no matter how much we want to help them, they have to want to help themselves first. And so once I had worked the process to make sure that my granddaughters were protected, I had to let go of the need to decide what path my daughter was on. I made a decision a long time ago that if it was her path to leave this life at a young age because of her choices, I would mourn her passing greatly, but I would know that I'd done everything that I could to help her. And one of the things that we have done is to protect her children and to give them the stability that they need. In the book, it talks about the fact that Lili has lived with 4 different families 8 different times in the first 10 years of her life. And that's a tough thing, because actually the last year and a half since my husband and I have adopted her, took her back in with us and adopted her, this is the most stable environment that she has been in, and that's a challenge for Lili. It's a challenge for all children that have been gone from one place to the next place, to be able to trust that it's safe to stay where they are right now and to feel comfortable with that. So that's been an interesting process that we've been going through, and Lili is an amazing child. As I said at the beginning of the book, the moment she was born, and I was there when she was pulled from her mama's belly with a C-section, I was God told that this child will be a peacemaker. She will be the next Henry Kissinger of the world, are the words that I heard. And I went, whoa, no stress there, God. Thank you very much for sharing that. And Lili has always been an old soul, and I think that has been helpful for her tremendously in walking the path that she has had to walk. A lot of us don't learn the lessons that she's learned until we're older. And she's learned that at a very young age, and it's going to be incredibly beneficial for her in the work that she's going to be carrying forward into this world.
Karen Pershing, let's talk a little bit about drugs for just a moment. If you've never walked that path, it's hard to imagine just the tremendous force of addiction. It can derail any and everyone. And maybe the most pernicious thing about addiction is the deception, the belief that you can handle it.
Exactly.
Tell us what the stats are and what you guys are learning.
Well, I mean, we know from the science of addiction, that the addicted brain changes. And so when that change happens, it's not a matter of will anymore. And so it may start off, the initial use as a decision and a choice, but then it becomes a physical and psychological need and a drive. And so it can take, anywhere from 12 to 18 months, sometimes up to 24 months, for someone's addicted brain to heal once they stop using drugs. And so there's a recognition among people who are using that they could die, that they are hurting others, but there's these cravings and these things that happen physiologically and mentally with them that unfortunately keeps them using until they get to the point where they say, it's enough, I can't do this anymore, and they reach out for help. But I see a lot of people every day. Half of my staff is in long-term recovery. Recovery is a beautiful thing. You see families heal. You see those individuals heal. You see them become contributing members to the community. But in the meantime, when they're in active addiction, they're tearing their families apart, and their children are suffering. And so, again, we see with our Department of Children's Services here in Tennessee, because of the opioid crisis, the numbers of kids in state custody have just boomed. I mean, there's just so many children now that are being removed from their homes as a result of their parents' substance use disorders.
Would you describe what you see as us being in crisis?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, Deb's book is such a reminder to all of us that if we just focus on the person with a substance use disorder, we're not going to heal as a community.
Right.
We have got to focus on these families and getting these families and these children in a better place.
What you bring to mind is the impact and the interconnectedness of our lives. So that if your mother has an addiction, all of the things that happen to her in some way turn around and affect you, right?
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, that would be true, right? But I don't think when we're in ourselves and only thinking about ourselves, think about the sweeping effect of our lives on other people's lives.
Something that I've used as an analogy when talking about that is living with someone in active addiction in the family is like living with a pipe bomb. It's eventually going to explode, and when it does, pieces of shrapnel fly everywhere. And the people that are the people that are affected the most are the ones that are on the outside looking in. The addicts, not so much so, because they're already numb to the world that they're living in. And it is a wide sweeping, very damaging situation when you have addiction in the family. And I know that there's not an addict out there that would say, I love being an addict. I don't believe that anyone out there would ever actually say that. They're not happy with their lives, and we want them to move forward. We want them to heal. We want them to heal their families, and we want them to forgive themselves. My daughter said recently, she said, I know, Mom, that you've forgiven me. But she said, I can't forgive myself for what I've done to myself and my family. And until they can forgive themselves, they're never going to be able to move forward and grow.
Yeah, that's big. Why don't we get a break? When we come back, I got a couple more questions for Lili. The book is entitled Overcoming My Mother's Addictions. It's by Deb and Lili Birdsall. More in a moment. You're listening to the Triple H Radio Experience, NewsTalk 98.7 WOKI. The book we're talking about is Overcoming My Mother's Addictions. Lili Birdsall is 11 years old. A couple of months ago, she forgave her mother. Her mother is battling addiction. She is in jail as we speak, but they came to a point of reconciliation. People in your community know your story?
Yeah, basically everybody.
So I am so curious. You know, you live in a culture where everything is online, right? Everybody's got a phone. Everybody's talking. Everybody's, sending messages back and forth. Did that have impact you thinking about how people may be thinking about you?
Sometimes.
Anybody say anything crazy to you? Did you ever get picked on? Did you? My read on you is you're a pretty tough young lady. It's not going to happen. You're like, you're ready for whatever's coming today. But have you had to deal with that?
Well, yeah, once when I was little, but it wasn't about like my story or anything.
Right. Do you worry about what people think or say?
Yeah, sometimes.
So let me ask you this. What is your vision of your future now? You're with your grandparents. You've forgiven your mother. Have you gotten to a place where you're not anticipating the next bad thing, but maybe excited about the next good thing?
Yeah.
What do you want? What do you want for your future?
I want to be an all-star cheerleader and go to Navarro.
Yeah, you're going to do that. Yeah. So that gets you pretty excited.
Yeah.
When's your next big, tell me about your life in the world of cheer. Like what's the next big thing for you?
Well, at the end of the school year, I'm going to try out for SCA, cheerleading competition thing.
So are you very acrobatic?
Yeah.
She could do the splits for you right here.
Really,
Absolutely.
Right. Yes. So my daughter tried cheering and she tried acrobatics. She's 22. Oh, no, she's 27 now. But I remember those days and the athleticism. I mean, especially in these higher end cheering competitions, it's so competitive and so athletic, and you've got to be on point. I mean, you've got to be. Do you have good instructors? Do you have a good support system?
Well, right now I am in school cheer, but yeah, I do have good coaches and people.
All right. I don't think if I tried to do the splits right now, you would have to take me to the hospital. It just would not work out well. What do we need to do? There are a couple of things that I want to make sure I touch on today. Is number one, how do people get a copy of your book? Because there definitely are people that are listening right now. They have a child or a grandchild that's struggling with addiction. That's one part of this. So the resources to help with that. But then they may have a child or a grandchild that is a superstar, world-renowned cheerleader in the making, right? They've got to help them cope with living with that and overcoming their mother's addiction. So how do we get this resource?
And that's why that's another one of the audiences that we're reaching out to with this book. We want to affirm grandparents that are raising grandchildren. There are 350 million, or there are 3 million grandchildren out there that are being raised in 3 million children being raised by their grandparents right now. And one of the reasons that we wrote this is because we want grandparents to understand how adverse childhood experiences may have affected their grandchildren. So instead of saying, what's wrong with you, kid, we're saying, what has happened to you, child? And moving into a place of compassionate care and not looking at the child as being an evil being because they have issues and problems. And in this book, Lili talks about her 12 life lessons, and she talks about the things that have helped her to work the process of overcoming her mother's addictions. And keep in mind, too, that this is overcoming. It doesn't say how I overcame my mother's addictions. It's overcoming, because it is a very long-term process. The book's available on Amazon. It was launched on the 8th of this month and immediately became a bestseller in about 5 different categories, became an international bestseller the next day. We're very proud of that. We're very excited. Not that we care about being best-selling authors, but we know that by doing that, we're getting the message out to more people. This is not about selling books. This has become a mission. This has become a ministry for us to be able to help those that are hurting, those that are dealing with the challenges that addiction does cause in the family. And Lili has had a very good support system that has helped her to continue to work this process.
Sounds like she's got better macaroni and cheese now as well. Karen, talk to me about the resources available through the work that you're doing.
Sure. Metro Drug Coalition, of course, focuses on 3 different areas. So we do primary prevention, trying to prevent substance use disorders before they happen. Then we do harm reduction, so services. So for people who are in active addiction, we offer naloxone, which is a rescue kit for overdose. We offer the training to family members or friends of those individuals. And then we also help navigate people into treatment. We don't do treatment, but we have a full-time staff member. If you call us, there's someone else who is in long-term recovery, and they know what it's like to reach out and need help. And so they're great at meeting people where they are and helping them get into the appropriate treatment resource available to them. And then we are also now in the recovery space. So what we know, like I mentioned earlier, is that the brain disease of addiction can take, you have to take a long-term approach to recovery. And so that initial treatment episode may be 30 days or less, and the brain is still not very well at that point. So what we're offering is recovery coaching, long-term recovery supports, recovery wellness meetings, mindfulness meditation, so that people can learn to manage their substance use disorder and proceed on into their recovery journey and become, again, productive members of society and get those families to heal.
How do people get in touch with you?
They can call us. Our number is 865-588-5550, or go to our website, metrodrug.org, and we're there to help.
Lili, have you ever been on the radio before?
No.
You know you're going to be a star, right?
No.
You got star all over you. I see stars. I see you with the macaroni endorsement, right? You do
And
about
hot
3.
sauce. Don't forget the hot sauce.
Okay, so what is the best hot sauce?
I always
Cholula?
No.
You like Cholula? You like Texas Pete? You like Louisiana?
She actually likes Tabasco sauce.
She likes Tabasco.
She does. Yeah.
Oh, and the habanero one.
Yeah.
Oh, you
So
like that?
Habanero. Whoa.
Have you had Frank's Red Hot?
Yes, it tastes disgusting.
Really?
Yeah, she's not going to get an endorsement from Frank's.
Oh, so we got to get you the Tabasco endorsement. All right, so let me ask you, as we wrap today, would you like to read your 12 life lessons for us? All right, why don't you take us through? These are the life lessons that Lili, she's 11 years old, has learned, and they are featured in the book Overcoming My Mother's Addictions, plural, that's available on Amazon. So this is your big shot. Take us through the 12 life lessons.
Number 1, I now understand that I have no control over what other people say or do. I know that the things they do and the words they say have nothing to do with me. People act the way they do because of what has happened in their lives. I work hard to make sure I don't let anyone make me feel bad about myself.
Number 2.
Number 2, I also try to see what makes someone act the way they do when I can put myself in their shoes. It lets me forgive them when they hurt me. My mind and heart are at peace when I can do this.
That's strong. Number 3.
Number 3, I also know how important it is to reach out and find at least one person who will love me unconditionally and support me through the tough times.
That is really important.
Like your dog,
What's your dog's name?
Abby,
Abby. What kind of dog?
Pitbull.
Do you talk to your dog?
Yes, all the time.
Does your dog talk back?
Yeah.
Okay, I got a dog like that too. Are we on number 4 now?
Yeah.
All right, number 4.
Number 4, we all need lots of friends. Some should be older than us and some should be younger. We can learn so much from other people and they can learn from us.
Number 5.
Number 5, I understand it is super important to make sure we let our friends and family know how much we appreciate them. We all just need to know that we are valued and loved.
Number 6.
Number 6, gratitude is something that I have learned to practice in order to feel good and grateful every day.
I love that one. That's my favorite. Keep going.
I make a list, sometimes on paper and sometimes in my mind, of all the good things I have in my life. I am blessed to have friends and counselors I feel safe enough to be honest with. This lets me work through any sadness or anger I am feeling. And it also allows me to have people who can share with them when I feel happy. Number 7.
No, let's stay on gratitude for just a second. Tell me a couple of things you're grateful for.
I am grateful for food.
Food, yes. What do you want to eat today? I like food too.
Mexican, like I always do.
Yeah, you like Mexican, and then we're going to hit it with some hot sauce. Yeah,
Obviously.
right there. Yeah. All right, number 7. Sorry, I just wanted to.
Number 7. I have learned to trust my feelings and won't let anyone else tell me how I should feel about what is going on in my life. Number 8. I know that it is good to help other people as often as we can. There are many people who need help and support. When I help other people, it makes me feel good too.
Oh, that's great. Number 9.
Number 9. Thank goodness. I love to move. I exercise, I listen to fun music, and dance. I do something every day to keep my energy up and my spirits high.
What's your favorite song right now? What are you dancing to right now? What's got you turned up right now?
Probably God's Country.
All right. That's awesome. What are we on now?
10.
10. All right.
10. I get to laugh a lot. I love to tease Grandma and Grandpa, and they like to tease me back. When we do that, we don't end up taking ourselves too seriously, and we have fun.
What's the last thing you teased your grandmother about?
In the car. And then my grandpa, I love scaring him a lot. And I tease him about his oval head.
He has an oval head. Wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I have a shots fired. All right. Which one are we on?
11.
11. All right.
11. I understand that it is so important to make good choices about who I spend my time with and what I watch and read. Those people and ideas will either build me up or cause me to make bad decisions.
And finally, number 12.
Number 12. And almost importantly, I know in my heart that God only makes beautiful people. I also know how much He loves me.
Yeah, that is so good. I love that list. I love that list. That list will work. I think it will work for anybody, anywhere. That's just whether you're battling addiction or you're just trying to have a really great life. That is really great stuff. And there are smiles on the other side of pain. I think you got a bright future, and I think you're going to help and bless a whole lot of people. And your mom was talking about you're going to be the next Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger is going to wish he was the next Lili. You understand what I'm saying? I want to thank you all for being here today. Lili, I'm so proud of you. You're a fabulous young lady, and I think, as a dad myself, you can't even imagine how great your future is going to be, especially if your future is directed by those 12 things. It's going to be amazing, and you are already living proof. And when we have painful situations in our life, this analogy that I use is that sometimes you hit rock bottom, and that's where you've fallen so far there's nowhere left to fall, or the hole is so deep that the earth has nowhere else to move. But rock bottom, when we change our perspective, turns into bedrock. And when they're building foundations, they want to build on something that doesn't move, and you can flip it. You can take that rock bottom, and now that becomes your bedrock, and you just build and build and build and build and build. And then I'll be this oval-headed guy that's 80 years old going, "You remember when you came on my radio show?" And you'll be like, "Talk to my assistant. Talk to my assistant."
I got too many important calls going on.
Right. I got to deal with you oval-headed people. Thank you guys for joining us on the broadcast.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.